Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sprint 195 review. This is a normal 2-week sprint, except for a holiday, one holiday day in the US in the middle. And let's get started. I'll start with the overview. Jeffrey will do the UI, Adam on providers, and Joe on the platform. As you can see, Sprint 195 was fairly typical. We had 27 bug fixes and 23 enhancements and a sprinkling of the rest. And over to Jeffrey for the UI.
Good morning. In this sprint, 9 PRs got merged into the UI classic repo, out of which 4 are bugs, 3 enhancement, 2 technical depths. I can explain about them in the following slides. David added the buttons to the Add New Dialog Form page by including corresponding action names set to an array in the MIQ customization controller. So you can see the one highlighted in the red rectangle at the bottom. Next slide. When the attach a new storage system button is pressed from the physical storage page, the redirect was not working and it stayed on the same page. So the AutoST team fixed this when they found about the physical storage timeline redirect action was in the wrong place. Yeah, next slide. The navigation's main menu search was returning the wrong number of results before. The issue got fixed when we added a key to the iterating loop in the UI. Next slide. While creating a new host initiator and choosing the ISCSI port type, the add button wouldn't get enabled when entering the IQN. Also, there were validation issues while adding a custom WWPN. The AutoST team fixed this by including some additional validations in the host initiator form component and its schema files. Next slide. Melody converted the attached detached cloud volume form pages and removed all of its old methods that were being used here. Next slide. Gilbert removed some unused Angular code for the cloud volume form pages. Next slide. So these are all Joe's PR. First two are related to translation updates, and the third one is related to the fixing of errors. So Joe had also fixed the argument errors as the errors were received as an error object now instead of hash. Next slide. Yeah, over to Adam. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. So this sprint for providers in core, Nasser added a change to allow MIQ widgets to be loaded from various plugins. We had a PR from the AutoSD team that was adding a new widget for their provider specifically, and they had to add it to core. And so light bulb went off, we should make this pluggable. So Nasser knocked that one out pretty quickly. So now you can add widgets to your content MIQ widgets directory in your provider plugin, and they'll be seeded by DB-seed on startup. The AutoSD team also added a link to the storage manager from the monitoring page. They recently added events, and so when you're looking at the events in the monitoring page on the UI, there was no way to get to the manager. The link was broken, so they fixed that. They also added a relation between physical storage and EMS events so that you can traverse that also from the events page. For Amazon this sprint, the bot updated instance types twice. Amazon updated a couple of these, they deprecated a few and then added one. And so we've got those updated and backported to the Oparin branch. The AutoSC team added fixed event types. So they have the concept of if an event was raised, that there's something wrong with a certain storage system. They also have an event where they have a fixed indicator. And so they created a new event type for each of these that raised the fixed concept. And so you can tell when something started going bad and then when something was resolved, which is nice. They also added some automate scripts to allow users to create cloud volumes from automate. That was in actually the content and the automation repo, but they were related to SD, so I put them here. Next slide. For IBM Cloud for Power, Jay fixed a provisioning issue when you were publishing a VM to a template. This is actually the first cloud provider to do publish, I believe. And so on the infra side, there was a default for number of VMs to be one, which was missing on the cloud side. So we fixed that up. For HMC, Khalees fixed an issue where the event catcher was still using a deprecated module parent. This was fine in Rails 6, but 6.1 deleted it, and you have to replace it with module parent. This was not covered by any specs, so we noticed it during actual live testing. The docs still had the old style, and so a number of providers copied the module parent style, and so we also fixed that up in the documentation so people don't do that in the future. For OpenStack, Nassar added targeted refresh specs for the new microstack rake task style, which was one of the later one of the few leftovers that the old style was using that we hadn't had on the new one yet. And then we moved the rest of the old VCR specs over to the new microstack style, and we're able to delete all of the old tests and old VCRs in that 8.1 APR. And that's it for providers. Over to Joe.
Okay, for core enhancements, Brandon enabled the orchestrator to set an environment variable with the application domain. This will, in the future, will allow us to build correct URLs to access the application. Brandon also changed the RPM build to bundle the dependencies with the appliance group and without development and test groups. The goal is to directly use the gem file lock for releases and eliminate some of the complexities we had there. Adam already mentioned Nassar enabled making widgets pluggable. Finally, Brandon made appliance console optional by removing the appliance environment variable check. Next slide. For core bugs, Adam fixed the UI bug for the VMware Web MKS console that failed to open WebSocket connections due to an invalid certificates permission. I fixed an issue where a Postgres DSN string had a leading space and we failed to parse it correctly. That was causing an error in the replication status page. Keenan and I had various 6.1 fixes and improvements, and we tried to make some changes as we were looking at Rails 7, trying to be compatible with that for the future. Next, Frank provided 2 sets of updated translations. Adam also already mentioned that Tony fixed a bug with the redirect link on a monitoring page for the physical storage providers. Brandon had several ManageIQ pods bug fixes. He also had a few RPM build bug fixes. And finally, Jason updated some Python dependencies for appliances for CVEs. Next slide.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Our next sprint review, Sprint 196, will be on September 21st at the usual place and time. And I'd like to thank all the presenters today, thank the contributors and the people trying out ManageIQ. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.